That's one of the joys of getting older. You don't have to be politically correct in things that you say all the time. He said, how the hell with it.
Welcome, everybody, to the Warrior Podcast. Today, I have a special guest. He's 88 years old. He's going to tell his life story. He is still working. He's a radon professional. I met him through real estate. He previously, the bulk of his career, he was in the computer business, worked for IBM. He made it to VP. He's had a really interesting ride in his life, and he's going to share his life story with us today. Welcome, Mr. Don Neag.
My friend, good to be here.
Yes. So here's how we met. Your son is a home inspector. Yeah. He has one of the best home inspection companies, if not the best in all of Chicago. Give a little plug to Ross. And I had a home inspector I was using, and I didn't like him too much. And he had home inspection one day, and he called sick. And he said, I'm going to send a replacement. So I did a little eye roll, and then Ross shows up. I was completely taken aback by his skill set. It so inspired me that I went to home inspection school, not to be a home inspector, but because I want to know what this guy knows. So, and then you came into the picture and you started doing all the radon technician stuff for his company.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, this guy, Don, is a pretty interesting guy. I also wanted to mention you are an Army veteran, and we'll talk about that too. Thank you for serving our country. All right, Don, take me back as far as you want to go. Childhood, how'd your parents get here, etc.
Interesting. I was chatting with one of my kids just over the weekend about that. I was born in 1937. So, and I had just turned 4 years old. By the way, born and raised in Oak Park.
Okay.
And I had just turned 4 years old when Pearl Harbor happened. So my earliest memories as a kid, I mean, I can remember, being a part of kindergarten and stuff like that, but my earliest memories for the kids were starting first grade through, let's see. So I would have been like 7, going on 8 when the war ended. Went to Holmes School in Oak Park.
What street is that on? Just because I come from the area too.
It's on Chicago Avenue. The old school's not there anymore.
Okay.
They knocked it down and put up a new one. Never should have knocked down the old building. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was just so beautiful. In those days, teachers taught either from paper and pencil or on the blackboard. All the walls were all covered with blackboards, and they would go to the blackboard to write out whatever it was, whether it was English or math or history or whatever. And what I remember as a kid is we would get to school, and before class started, all of us would go to the blackboard and we would draw pictures of the war, of tanks and airplanes and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, just really involved, picture stories of everything that we were hearing as kids, because everything in the early 40s revolved around the war.
Right.
Everybody was involved one way or another. And I had an older brother, a half brother actually, from my dad's first marriage, who was in the Air Force. I had 1, 2, 3 different uncles that served. Probably a half a dozen or more guys from our church were in the service. So, as a kid, you were surrounded by it. So it was funny. I think about that, how we had all the kids, mostly the little boys. The girls would be drawing their flowers and stuff, but all those little boys were all had the war in our mind. So we would be drawing all these pictures. And then the teacher would come in and say, okay, you have to clean the boards. So then we'd get rid of it all, and then class would start.
I think it's a little boy thing and a male thing. So for some reason, when I grew up, and I'm 62, World War II is fascinating to me. I can't tell you how many aircraft I've drawn and built. I can still draw pretty much every United States aircraft from memory from World War II.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little boy thing. So you guys were kind of excited about it.
Oh, yeah. And for Christmas, I can remember for a couple of Christmases, I would get like little toy military vehicles. Like one of my favorite was an armored car. And by the way, these things were made of metal,
right?
And I mean, they were made to last. This thing was like it was indestructible. And we around the house, you'd play with that. You'd fantasize, battles and all kinds of stuff, because that was the whole environment we grew up with.
Those toys are real valuable now if they're in good condition and you have the box.
Oh, I can imagine.
I see that on the Antiques Roadshow all the time.
Yeah, but this one is long gone.
So tell me about. Let's go back a little bit earlier than school here. What did your parents do?
My mom and dad were both immigrants. They were both born in Romania and came to the United States. They met here. Dad, was interesting story, if I can.
Yes,
a
please.
little bit about his background, the stories he told us. He was about 12 when he came to the United States with his father. They came from a small town in western Romania, not far from the Hungarian border. And the reason they came was that my grandfather, who I never met, by the way, was a town of an official in their village, and a traveling preacher came through town, and my grandfather put him up at their house. And I think if I remember correctly, I think he was Hungarian. And while he was there, he started talking to my grandfather about, he's a whatever denomination he was, and he converted my grandfather from the Eastern Orthodox Church, which is what 95% of Romania is, Eastern Orthodox, to whatever religion he was. Long story short, it was considered a heresy within the village and all the other people. They excommunicated my grandfather from the church. They literally had a pseudo funeral for him.
Holy cow!
Because as far as they were concerned, he was now dead. So I'm putting two and two together, because then my grandfather ends up coming to the United States with my dad, who was the oldest of three kids. I don't know how long he stayed, but he had to stay for some period of time, but he didn't like it here. He went back to Romania. By that time, my dad really liked it here. So my dad stayed with some family friends and stayed in the United States.
And was your grandmother alive? She took care of the other two kids?
She must, yeah. I'm pretty sure she was.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, I know she was, because Dad went back, I know, 3 or 4 different times to visit over the years. I can remember him leaving and going back to Romania on a few occasions to visit.
What an interesting beginning.
Yeah. Dad ended up in Akron and went to work so this would take us into the 20s, so he would have been 20-some years old. He was born in 1895, came over in 1907. So he's in Akron, goes to work for Firestone, gets married, has 2 children. He married an American girl. And Firestone transfers him to Paris, to their Paris office, which is interesting. And he's in Paris working for Firestone when the Depression hits. Well, that's the end of that story. So Firestone brought him back. He didn't, and let him go. Didn't have a job. So he, like everybody else, is in the depression. No, what the hell am I going to do? He moves. He through Romanian friends. He knows he moves to Chicago and gets a job as a janitor. Only job he could get. And so that's, by that time, it's leading up into the depression, and he was very lucky to have a job that paid in those days pretty well, even a janitor's job. In fact, he did so well. One time he bought a Lincoln Zephyr as his car. He was always a car guy. Bought a Lincoln Zephyr. He wouldn't even park it in the neighborhood because he was afraid people would see what kind of a car this guy's driving.
Hey, everybody. I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsors. My dear friend Andy Thompson is the owner and operator of Talon Studios. Talon Studios makes custom knives. This is one of the first knives he made it for me. It's extremely sharp. Everything is made by hand. The handles, the grips, everything. They're beautiful, durable knives. We like to say knives for life. Whether you're a collector or you want knives for utility and function, he even makes the casings for the knives by hand too. Andy works with his son AJ. They are super fine craftsmen, and every knife they put everything, all their heart and soul into their knives. So that's Talon Studios. I will put a link in the description of each of the podcasts, and you'll see their information at the end. Do you remember what the year of the Lincoln Zephyr is? Because we could throw a photo in the podcast.
It would have been the late 30s.
Okay.
We got, in the family album, we got a couple of pictures. I'm guessing maybe a 37, 38, something like that. So there he is during the Depression. He's got a nice solid job, earning good money. By that time, there's myself and my sister are on the scene. I had an older sister. Her name was Becky. And so then leads into World War II.
Where you were a young boy when it started, you said?
And all the nonsense went on that. The point is that he ended up staying in that job until he retired in the early 60s. And they then moved down to Florida. So he was a janitor all those times. I think what happened was he knew that he could probably go back into he was obviously doing office kinds of things with Firestone when they had him sent him over to Paris. I'm not sure what department, some sort of accounting job. He probably could have gone back into that, but I think he liked the idea. He made reasonably good money and had a lot of freedom in terms of the job. He didn't punch any clocks at all. He just got the work done however he got it done. And growing up, when I got old enough, I helped.
Did they speak Romanian in the house?
They did to each other, but and by the way, both spoke English without any accent at all.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting. So they used Romanian to not let us know what they were saying.
Gotcha.
They never taught us the language other than a few phrases that we learned. Okay, so Romanian was their secret sauce.
Nice. So, do you have any memorable foods that were prepared by your mom?
Oh yeah. There were a lot of Romanian dishes, like stuffed cabbage and stuffed green peppers. Mom was an okay cook. Okay, she was a fantastic baker. She made pastries that you would die for. One of the favorite is basically a strudel. Okay, they call it placinza, but it's basically strudel. And she would do apple or walnut or cheese strudels. And she grew up in a large family. My dad, I had a couple of siblings that were back in Romania, so he had no family here other than some distant uncles and so a couple of people like that. Mom immigrated here with her entire family, and she was one of 8 kids.
Ooh.
Yeah, she had 5 sisters and 2 brothers. So growing up, I had aunts and uncles coming out of my ears, cousins coming out of my ears, and Of all the ladies, my mom was far and away the best baker of all.
Oh yeah.
Okay, her strudel, the pastry on it would flake off like paper. It was like paper thin, and the taste was just marvelous. And then she had cakes, different kinds of cakes that she would make, and so on. That were the Romanian something called kolac, which was basically like a bunt walnut cake, kind of a bunt thing with a circle in the middle, to die for. It was
Did
so good.
any of that rub off on you or no?
Nah, not me. My wife got some of the recipes from my mom, and yeah, she's a hell of a baker as well. She really does a good job.
We're going to get to Sylvia in a while. We're not quite there yet in the timeline. So we can move on with your parents, but you know, when I was growing up, certain things were said to me over and over again that sometimes you heard it so often you rolled your eyes. So like my grandparents, my grandfather was born in 1898, close to yours, and he used to say, "Save your pennies for a rainy day." They were all Depression era people. They raised 10 kids during the Depression, and so they didn't waste anything. And their mindset was work hard, be frugal, save your money, etc. So save your pennies for a rainy day is something that's hardwired. And then my godfather, he would tell me two things which really resonated with me that I still use. And one was the cream always rises to the top, and they can never take your ability away from you. So when I was having trouble in business, that's what he would tell me. So do you have any of those type of things with your parents, or anything that would be a lesson that you learned, or did your father swat you sometimes when you needed it, or no?
Our parents were not afraid to whack us when we deserved it. Okay, their problem was trying to catch up with us to whack us. Because when it came time for that, we weren't interested in getting hit, so we would run around the dining room table, and they would chase us around the table or whatever. And typically, we would do it and say things to the point where they'd finally start laughing, and then it would be over. Getting whacked was part of it.
I think that was across the board for all parenting, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So unaccepted now too.
All my friends, regardless of what their ethnicity was, back in the day, getting whacked was part of growing up. They wanted to get your attention and make sure whatever you were doing, you'd think twice about the next time.
Oh yeah, I call them well-placed shots. So there's nothing more teaching than a well-placed shot.
And I did it with our kids growing up as well. Okay, the only place I ever hit them was in the butt.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, but I'd give them a good whack in the butt as an attention getter for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of times you hurt their feelings more than the sting of their butt. And
Oh yeah.
And you play the parental mind tricks with them. You get them the disappointed looks. So it will get to the point with me. I have three sons that the look was enough. Yeah. The disappointing look, and you're like, oh crap. So, all right. So you're going through grammar school. Are you a good student? Are you into sports? What goes on there?
Actually, I was a pretty good student all through grammar school and high school. When I wasn't getting into trouble and I had to go to the principal's office and write, whatever I did wrong 500 times over lunch, and I remember I had to do that a couple of times.
Were you a rabble rouser or just occasionally?
I just a trouble getting in trouble. Yeah, kind of doing. I've always kind of rebelled against authority. That's kind of in my DNA. Just something. Yeah. Even when I got to the Army, I got in a couple of fixes in the Army, which we'll get to.
My middle son is that way, and he got into some scuffles in the Marines as well.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with defying authority because I'm one of the authority figures he defied growing up. So
again, stuff like that, I think, is just baked in. It's just part of who you are.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah,
lots of sports, and interestingly, we played a lot of softball. and it was always pickup games.
Is it the Chicago style 16-inch softball?
Or we'd have like a 14-inch at the school, which we played. It wasn't 12 and it wasn't 16. It was 14-inch, so it was still no mitts, but the ball was just a little bit smaller. And what we'd do is we'd all have our own bats and balls, and we'd show up at the playground right next to the school before school started, and we'd choose sides and play, and that's the way it was. In gym or physical training, we'd play everything. We baseball or softball, actually, not baseball. As a kid, none of us ever played baseball unless you were really into it, and the only way you could play organized baseball in my age group was American Legion. There was no little league. None of that had been invented yet. It was American Legion was the only amateur baseball that high school kids could get involved in, other than playing for the high school.
So when you're in grammar school and you're doing all this stuff, did you have like a crew of guys, or did you have one guy that was your best friend?
I had a couple of really good close friends that were with me from kindergarten on. Tom Price, Johnny Gilmore, and then I had a bunch of other good friends, but my two closest were Tom Price and Johnny Gilmore.
How long did they stay in your life?
Tom Price was best man at my wedding.
Wow.
And in fact, up until just recently, we would still get together. Tom lives out in the country, and unfortunately, we're all guessing some dementia kicked in, because I put a couple calls into him and got some weird responses, and then just kind of like going away. So sad. But no, Tom was a good friend for.
That's awesome when you have a friend that goes all the way back to childhood.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't ever have a friend like that.
Yeah. And by the way, one of the hard things about growing old that people don't realize until you're in a position like I am. I can remember when I turned 65, and you're doing the Social Security stuff when you turn 65. I remember thinking in terms of, man, if I can make it to 80, I'll be happy. Mom died at 70. She was 77. Dad was 79. If I make it to 80, man, I'll be doing well. Here I am, 88 and counting. Just a year ago, last month, I lost the last of my longtime friends. So they've all died. And
it is a curse of old age.
And it is. And it's something that, I never even occurred to me until my last buddy, Dan, passed away a year ago, April. And I wake up the next day and say, good God, they're all gone. All my old friends are gone. And that includes, the family members. I've got a younger brother who's still around. By the way, he was a Marine in Nam, dealing with all the after effects of Agent Orange.
Well, I know a lot of Vietnam veterans that have that.
I can count probably 5 of them that I know. All have Agent Orange issues. So friends through grammar school, and then we all ended up going to Oak Park High together, and continued to be friends through Oak Park. And in Oak Park, actually, I was a pretty good student, good enough to get accepted at Georgia Tech. When we applied, actually, I applied 3 or 4 schools. I applied to Purdue. I was interested in industrial engineering because my older brother was an industrial engineer. He talked to me about it, and he says, that sounds cool. And I grew up in the age where if you had good enough grades and you could get into the school. Guys would go try for engineering degrees, whether it's electrical or mechanical or whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay, and my choice was industrial engineering. I applied at Purdue, Georgia Tech, Michigan, and I think it was Caltech, because I was looking at technical schools that had industrial engineering programs, and all those schools had industrial engineering programs, but the only school that had a 4-year industrial engineering program was Georgia Tech. So when I got accepted there, I said, that's where I'm going. Plus, I played high school football, and in the 50s, I graduated from high school in 55. Georgia Tech had just run a national championship, and their coach was Bobby Dodd, who was very, very famous as one of the best coaches in the country. So I said, hey, maybe I can play some ball there too. Although I didn't have a scholarship, but so when I got there, I walked on, and I was one of 12 walk-ons that they kept around. And then I learned that the reason they kept us around was they need somebody to hold the blocking dummies. So after about 2 weeks of that, I said, I think I'm going to take a pass on this. I think they had given something like over 30 freshman scholarships to, and they had a bunch of kids that were like all Americans and so on, really good ball players. Yeah.
All right. So let's pause into college and go back to high school. Sure. And I want to ask you this question, because you were in pursuit of a good education. Was that influenced by your parents, or was that just something that was innate inside of you?
My parents certainly encouraged it. I was the first kid in the family to go to college.
I mean, the whole big Romanian crew, or just
as far as I know, in our whole Romanian family, I was the first one to go to college. That's not true. I had a couple of older cousins that went to college, but in our immediate family, I was the first to go to college, and my dad encouraged that. He, particularly the engineering thing. He was always saying, get a degree in engineering, you'll do well. And I think that's what he learned when he was at Firestone. He saw all the engineers that had good paying jobs.
And I would have to guess your parents were pretty scholastically intelligent. The fact that they came from another country and they could speak English without an accent, that's something, right? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're in high school. You're probably being very studious and stuff like that.
And played football all 4 years.
Which position?
Ran track. I was a running back. My best year was actually my junior year, and I was on the JVs, not the varsity. And interestingly, we won the conference championship, our JV team, and probably 3/4 of the varsity starting team the next year were our JV team. We were really good. And I played running back on offense and linebacker on defense because I could tackle really well.
So you're doing both ways, a lot of games?
And I thought I died and gone to heaven.
Nice.
I couldn't have been happier running the ball on offense and being able to tackle guys.
Yeah, that's the best.
It was fun.
What about the track? What did you do in track?
I ran sprints and broad jumped.
What kind of sprints? 100 meter?
Well,
or 100 yards, rather?
We had Oak Park was pretty renowned for their track teams back in the day. And we had a field house. So the Oak Park Relays, which was an indoor wintertime track meet, was, famous in Illinois, if not in the Midwest. And there'd be like, 15 or 20 different teams show up for the relays and so on. So we could run a 50-yard sprint, and then we had a lap of the field house was probably, I'd guess, maybe an eighth of a mile. And we would have relay races with sprinting.
So I've competed in that field house because I was a track 2 shot put and discus.
Oh.
And I went to Morton West, and we had a big indoor track.
Sure.
So I believe I remember that the indoor track is a tenth of a mile.
Yeah, that sounds probably about right.
And the straightaway, the one straightaway is like that's the 50-yard dash, basically.
Yeah,
so,
on the far side of the building. Yeah, and then we had the long jump.
When you say broad jump, that was long jump. Yes.
Yeah, they call it broad jump. Now it's long jump. Okay. One of my great accomplishments was I broke 20 feet. Okay, didn't win, but my goal was to break 20 feet, and I was able to get that done. Yeah,
that's really cool. So you're running sprints, and then you're playing football. So you're a fast guy in the field when you're playing football.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, well, running back. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. You finish high school. What happens during high school with dating in the 1950s? You said you graduated in 55. Did you go on any dates back then?
When it came to girls, I was the dumbest guy on the planet. I never had a steady girl. I just had a couple of dates during high school, but it was that was something that was not part of who I was.
Was you'd say it was awkwardness?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, shyness, and I was always hanging with the guys. Okay, and that was it. And the group I hung with, I can't think of any of them that had a steady girlfriend. So we were just a bunch of guys that hung out.
I think that's pretty cool, though.
But interestingly, there's one thing that kind of sticks with me. It's a memory that I haven't lost. We were at a party, a high school party. You know how those are. There's 100 kids, everybody running all over the place. And so I was at the party with some buddies, and we were in the process of leaving the party. And as we were leaving, some girls came in, and it was a crew of the girls that were the cool girls, which typically means they are all cute, right? And this one says, "Hi, are you Don Neag?" And I turned and I said, "Yeah." And I kept going.
Dumb.
Yeah. How dumb is that? Okay. And sometime not long after that, we were all maybe we were at the field house at a game or whatever, and she was there, and she either said or did something that let me know that she was not very happy with me, because she was trying to open up a conversation and get together, and I just totally blew her off. Or that's what she thought. And I didn't blow her off. It was just...
You were naive. You didn't pick up on that.
I didn't pick up on it.
And
that was me. I was dumb as a rock when it came to girls.
Yeah, so I had interest in girls in high school, but I didn't have the nerve to ask them out. I liked the bombshell of my class. Her name was Lisa Zabel. She was the cheerleader. She was astonishingly beautiful. Could never rouse up the nerve to ask her out. Yeah. So that's okay. But some of my buddies, my buddy Tim, he was suave, fearless. He could ask anybody out. If they said, no, I don't care, I'll move on to the next one. Any other high school highlights?
Oh, boy. Well,
did you do any intellectual competitions, math contests, or anything like that?
Interestingly, Oak Park had what they call debating clubs. There were two different clubs, the Lincoln Club and the Burke Club, and all the in people were on the debating clubs. And when I was a senior, I was playing ball. I was really looking forward to my senior year. When we finished our JV year, the head coach called me into his office and said, "Hey, you're going to be one of my running backs. Look forward to working with you." And then in preseason practice, I broke my collarbone.
Oof.
So we are at 2 days, and it just happened. So I was out for I think there was an 8-game season. I think I missed like the first 5 weeks. So I was only around for the last 3. It was a bummer. But I was pretty well known because of the track and stuff, and I was a pretty good student. They invited me to join one of the debating clubs, and so I was part of the Burke. I think there's my picture in the yearbook and all that stuff. Part of the Burke debating club, and I can remember when I was called on to be a part of one of the debates. We did it in teams of 2, me and one guy against 2 other guys, and we got into the debate. And I can remember when they were talking after I was writing down the counterpoints and so on. And when it was my turn, I got up there. I remember we killed them. So I found that interesting, and that relates to when I was at Georgia Tech. One of my electives that I had to take was in public speaking, engineers and public speaking. So I can remember doing I remember each of us had to make like a 3 or 4 minute speech, and you chose a topic, and then you made the speech. And I can remember after I finished, the instructor said, the professor said, "You did a really nice job, kid. Have you thought about going into law?" Because I guess I made a pretty convincing case for it. Was a dumb. I can remember the subject. It was stupid, but something that a college senior would do.
Okay, so 2 things on the speaking. On the debate, because I've never been on a debate team, but I debate all the time in my real life.
Oh, sure.
Do they give you a premise and then you have for and against, right?
That's exactly the way it was. Yeah. Okay. Here's the premise. Okay, and you've got a pro and a con, and then each make their case, and you have the rebuttals. And I can remember that my rebuttal, I nailed them, and we won the debate.
So with that, that's an interesting mental exercise, because you have to be able to see both sides, which is very unlike human beings. So we pick one side and we stick with that side. They may come up with a premise that you are all for in your brain, but if they say you're the nay, right, then you have to come up with the counter arguments and something that you believe is actually you're for, right? Now you have to argue against something you're for, which is cool.
Yeah.
That's a real cool.
It's just debating the issue, whatever it is. Yeah.
And then when you took the public speaking class, had you had any nervousness about public speaking?
Oh, sure. I can remember in my room, and I lived off campus. I can remember, organizing the thing and putting it on 3x5s, and then getting up in front of a mirror and practicing it until I got to the point where I was comfortable with what I was saying. So it was quite it was an engineer's approach to making a speech, right? Getting very organized and so on, and going through the process.
Public speaking is interesting to me because I've done a lot of, let's say, more aggressive things. Did ring fighting and MMA type stuff. I'm in the trading pits screaming and yelling.
Oh boy.
But I had a sales job for 3 years, and the owner of the company made the sales team go to Toastmasters, which is an international public speaking club. And I was shitting my pants.
Oh yeah. But what great training.
Oh yeah. And I'm like, how could I do all these other things, but like this thing here? And like say, the fear of public speaking is greater than our fear of death. And I had that.
Yeah.
So, but it's gone now.
Yeah.
That's why I can do this.
Toastmasters would be what I did in a public speaking class on steroids, because you're talking in front of a very large group of people. I was talking in front of maybe 10 guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was at Georgia Tech, our total enrollment was about 6,000. And my class was the very first class that had a girl. A girl.
Wow.
There was one girl at Georgia Tech when I was there, and I ended up dating her, I think, in my junior year. But she was a cute girl.
Wow. She must have had interesting stories,
Oh,
right?
boy. Yeah. Can you imagine that? Yeah, she thought she died and gone to heaven. But again, she's in an engineering school. Now, the only non-engineering curriculum that we had was called industrial management. So it was like a business degree, but they had to do things like take physics and calculus and all the basic sciences as part of their curriculum. So it was interesting. Most of the football players were in the industrial management, the IM curricula.
So through this period that we've already covered, did you have any jobs? Did you work?
Oh, yeah. Had the best job in the world during the summers, when I wasn't in school. It was called vacation janitor work. My dad would take me into the union office, and I'm sure it included, giving a couple of bucks to the business agent, and he would line me up with taking the work of janitors while they were on vacation. So I would go in and like if the guy was on a 2-week vacation, I'd get something like 40% of what he earned, and if depending on how many buildings it was, I could have maybe 2 different vacation janitor gigs at the same time, because I could probably handle a half a dozen different buildings.
And for a kid, that 40% was a good amount of money, right?
The out of state tuition at Georgia Tech when I started was, you ready for this? $500
for a semester or a whole
for the year.
Oh boy,
for 3 quarters, $500 for the year. And we were on a quarter system, and then of course, you had all the other expenses over and above that. But I could earn enough money in a summer's work to pay. I probably paid for 75% of all my costs going to tech. And then the folks would kick in whatever else was, I needed above and beyond that, which was,
I was going to ask you how you paid for college, so you got that all taken care of.
Yeah, yeah, and it was because of and interestingly, the business agent, all the janitors had to belong. If you wanted a janitor's job, you had to belong to the janitors union. By the way, that's the union that built Marina City.
No kidding.
That union built Marina City, yeah. So they had a lot of money. Dad was a union member all those years, and he was the most conservative guy you ever met in your life. He couldn't stand the Democrats in the labor side of the world, which I always found fascinating. And that's how I grew up, as a conservative and a Sox fan. I had no choice in either matter.
That's funny. We have covered some good college stuff. Any highlights in there you want to shout out? You did play football. You quit though pretty right away, right?
Oh yeah. And I ran some track for him when I was a freshman. Did that for a while, and then I just I wasn't involved in sports after that.
Okay, and I know you told me before we started that you did get into running. What were you doing for exercise? And after you quit all your activities, did you do anything in intramural stuff or?
Well, at Tech, for the first 2 years, we physical training was part of it, including, by the way, the most unique swimming class on the planet. I can't remember the name of the guy now, but the class was called drown proofing. And the guy created the class during World War II. Georgia Tech graduated more. Excuse me. Georgia Tech, next to the Naval Academy, graduated the most midshipmen during World War II.
Wow.
Yeah, this was interesting. So the guy there developed a course called drown proofing, and part of it, and what you would do is you go in there, and he basically said, okay, we're going to teach you how to survive in the water. And one of the very first things they did is after you jump in the pool, teach you how to bob and stuff like that. They tie your hands behind your back and throw you into about 8 feet of water. So what you would have to do is let your air out, sink to the bottom, stay on the bottom for a little bit, push off the bottom, break the surface, take a breath, and sink all the way back down. You're in there for 40 minutes.
Oh, boy.
Okay. So then they did it. Then they tied your feet and did the same thing. You did it for 40 minutes. Then the last part of it was they tied your hands and feet.
Wow.
And threw you into 8 feet of water. And you were there for 40 minutes. Okay. Guys that went through that drown proofing during the war that got shot down came back with stories about how they survived floating in the ocean for a couple of days before they were rescued. So it's amazing. And then we do things like we had to swim 2 lengths of the pool underwater, which was interesting. And I may talk about mental, what you're going through in your head by the time you feel like your lungs are going to burst before you finally get to the end of it. Then they put us with a shirt and pants, and we'd have to swim a mile in our clothes.
Wow.
And all that. And if you graduated with a B or better, you got a senior life-saving badge and some other Red Cross badge. And I got a B out of it. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that's a highlight to me.
It was an amazing course, and went on for years after I was there. I think finally the guy retired in the 70s, and I think they finally dropped it. We had that. We had volleyball, basketball, all kinds of stuff like that.
Were you tinkering around with that stuff, or no?
Well, just playing it with guys, and I was a good athlete my whole life, so it was all pretty easy for me to do and be good at. Also, since I was at Tech while the draft was still going, we were all required to do ROTC.
What's involved with ROTC now?
It was regular classes. It was Reserve Officer Training class.
And then what do they cover in that curriculum? Like
everything on the military, and I don't know how to military terms, the ranks, just different classes. I did my older brother was in the Army Air Force, so I chose the Air Force ROTC for 2 years, which helped me, by the way, when I got into the Army, because I had some military training behind me, knew how to march, knew how to do all that kind of stuff, and so I was. During basic training, I ended up as the platoon guide.
What does that mean? You got a squad underneath you, or
I had the whole platoon underneath me.
Okay,
I was the acting platoon sergeant when our regular platoon sergeant, who was a World War II and Korean vet, by the way. Oh boy! Oh yeah, all of them were. They were tough dudes.
Yeah, I was going to say these are guys you don't want to mess with.
No, Sergeant Roberts. He was mean, but he accomplished what he was supposed to do.
And what is the size of a platoon, roughly?
4 squads, 50 guys.
50 guys.
Yeah. I had my own room rather than being out in a bunk bed with all the hoi polloi. It was cool.
So you're out of college. You told me before we started that you stayed active in the military, but that was not like part of it was full-time and part of it was not, right?
Yeah, you either got drafted, 2 years active duty, or you signed up for the reserves, either Army Reserve or National Guard, and that was 6 months active duty, followed by 6.5 years of active reserve, where like in today's world, you're in the National Guard, the odds are better than 50-50, they're going to call you up. When we were there, we were between the Korean and Vietnam War. Timing couldn't have been better. I was lucky as hell that we were in that one sweet spot where nothing significant was going on. Okay. By the way, getting back to college, I didn't breeze through college. Okay? No, my first year wasn't bad. Sophomore year, a little bit better. Then I had some tough times at Tech. depending on what GPA you carried, if you got to the point where your GPA wasn't good enough, they would literally kick you out of school, and you'd have to go to night school, take classes to make up your grade level to get back in. Over the years, I got kicked out at least twice that I remember. Right? They kicked me out of school. I had to go to night school, redo some classes, and get back in.
What was the cause of that? Was it loss of focus?
Yeah, you probably focus, and it was damn hard work.
Mhm.
And we were talking about some serious courses with a lot of difficult subjects. Okay, and give you an example. I got my public speaking was one of my electives. I got an A in it. Another one of my electives that I had to take was in literature. I took a course in Shakespeare, got an A in it. I got A's in all my electives that I took during the school, as opposed to my main curriculum and so on. So I started in 55. Graduating class was 59. I wasn't even close to having enough hours to graduate. So that's when I went into the Army. My buddies, who had three buddies, all had graduated, and say, "Okay, we're going to do the Guard and get it out of the way." So I thought, hell, I'll join you guys and get it out of the way at the same time. So before I graduated, in 59 is when I went in and did my active duty. So that was from like September to March of 60. As soon as I got out of the Army, I went back into school. And it took me to the end of 61 to graduate. So from summer of 60 to 61, end of 61, was my final year and a half at Tech.
So that's 6 years after you started college, right?
Yeah. Total of 6.
Yeah.
6 and change. Because I didn't get finished until December of 61. Okay, so I didn't finish the fall quarter. It was my last quarter there to finish my curriculum.
So your degree was in industrial engineering?
Yeah.
Okay. So now what happens?
So the last year and a half, when it was all the IE intensive courses on a 4-point system, I got a 3.5 to wrap it up. So when I got out of the Army and went back in, I said, okay, all I wanted to do was finish. I wanted to get the heck out of Tech and be done. And so I applied myself. And when I went out and started looking for a job after I graduated, I was off cycle. So I was just writing letters to everybody, and I ended up the 2 job offers that I got that I was considering was one from AT&T. Wanted me to let me step back. As I was finishing at Tech, I was meeting with one of my deans that was helping with. They'd help you with the placement, give you ideas on it. So I met with him, and I've got my degree in industrial engineering, right? And I'm saying to him, hey, the last thing I want to do is go to work for a company and run around the factory floor with a stopwatch, because that's what we did. We did work in motion studies and figured out ways to make things better. That's what industrial engineers do, okay? And I said, I need to find something that I need to make money, because I couldn't be more broke. I had to borrow some money from Tech to finish my getting out of there, which I paid him back, by the way. He said, well, how about technical sales? I said, what's that? I'd never sold a thing in my life. I had no idea what it was. And he explained it. You sell complex things for large corporations. So my two offers were from AT&T and IBM. And the only reason I chose IBM over AT&T was they were going to pay me $25 a month more than AT&T. I started IBM at $550 a month.
Wow. Now, I don't know what that means in 1960s dollars. Is that okay pay or?
No, that was good pay.
Yeah.
That was good pay. That's the equivalent of these kids that come out at start at $60K or whatever today.
Okay. Gotcha.
I'll put it this way. I bought my first new car in my first year at IBM. I bought an Oldsmobile convertible. They're compact size, the F-85 Oldsmobile convertible.
What year was that?
That would have been like 64 probably.
Okay.
No, 63. 62 or 63. It would have been 62 or 63. Okay. Bought it new for $3,000.
So you were making $5 something a month.
$6,000 a year.
Right. So it would be basically half your annual salary, so that's about right. If you make $100,000,
you're going to pay 50 for a car.
Yeah, which is not unheard of. It is what it is. Yeah.
So that gives you an idea. So I started as a trainee, and I finally got out of the training program, and then you start as a new account salesman. They give you a territory. They said, go sell something. When I started, Frank, my goal was, if I could just earn my age, I'd consider myself incredibly successul.
How do you equate earn your age? What does that mean?
25 years old. If I could earn $25,000 a year,
okay,
I'd be happy as a pig in you know what. And finally got to the point where I did that, and then of course went way beyond that.
Which is a lofty goal when you're making $6,000 a year.
That's right. Think about that.
You're going. I want to quit
4 times
quadruple
that?
It. Yeah. And I could see how being an industrial engineer selling complex things, you need that skill set to explain these complex things and how they work and the functionality of them, correct?
Oh, yeah. IBM in those days was the 800-pound gorilla in the computer market. They had to sign a consent decree with the DOJ in 1956 that forbade them from basically putting all the other companies out of business because they easily could have done it. So they had to make room for competition. But even at that, we probably had 75% of the market. Okay. And the two divisions were data processing division, which was the computer division, and the typewriter division, which sold the IBM electric typewriters. And that was it. The only two divisions were. And I was in the data processing division. So as a new account salesman, I was and their offices were segregated by industry. I was in the Chicago West office, which was manufacturing, and it was located in River Forest on Lake Street.
That's your hood, man.
Yeah, right. I could literally walk. To my office. They gave me a territory on the west side of Chicago and said, "Go start selling to manufacturing companies." You go out with my white tie, and my suit, and my hat. We all wore hats. Okay, and we weren't allowed to drink on the job. Those were all the IBM rules. And my briefcase, going up and down the streets on the west side of the city, knocking on doors, trying to convince somebody to buy. And as new account salesmen, we didn't sell computers. We sold what they called unit record equipment, which was the IBM punch card. Okay, the equipment that was able to use to either print them or calculate and so on with those. And you didn't get to the computers until you earned your spurs. Okay, and if you started as a salesman and you didn't make your quota, which was the 100% club, they'd give you maybe a year to make it happen. And if not, You're out of here. So
So I'm talking to somebody that's got a nice stash of money. That's what you're telling me. So I just popped into my head in this time frame when you're working. You said you finished college officially in 1961. On November 22nd, 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated. Do you? Everybody says they remember exactly where they were when they heard that.
I remember exactly where I was. I was having either lunch or late breakfast at a diner near my apartment. Me and a buddy had an apartment up on Marine Drive, which overlooked the lake up near Lawrence. And I was in the diner, and there was a TV on the wall, the old TVs, okay? And the announcement comes up. I went, what? I couldn't freaking believe it. And I was no fan of JFK, by the way. I didn't like him at all because he was a Democrat, right?
Another shout out to one of our sponsors, Nevis Nutrition, which is a vitamin and supplement shop in Lamont. Owner Joe Bosco, dear friend of mine. Joe is super knowledgeable in nutrition, extremely knowledgeable in fitness. All the top athletes, weightlifters, bodybuilders, they go over there. He's really instrumental in help coaching our young athletes too. He's located in Lamont. I'll put the address in the description as well. Well, it's interesting you were even political at that age, because that's a pretty young age to even be paying attention to it. But
oh yeah, I can remember watching the Nixon debates while I was in Atlanta, and watching that and thinking to myself, you're not doing a very good job, Nixon.
Oh, he was bad, wasn't he?
Oh, it was brutal. It was not good. It was not a good look, for sure. But yeah, I know exactly where I was. And I can remember writing a letter to my dad, who also was a Republican. And my dad saved the letter and showed it to me some years later, because in the letter I said, we didn't have email, wasn't a thing, right? You wrote letters if you wanted to communicate, right? And I said in the letter, I said, Dad, even though we don't like him and he's a Democrat, I said, there's no reason at all for that to happen, and it's a blight on the country for them to kill that guy.
I don't want to veer off into politics, but that was a different era, and people's mindsets were different. It was a tragedy for everybody. Now, there's assassination attempts on Trump, and people are like, "Oh, too bad he missed," or Charlie Kirk. They're joyful about it. You're missing the mark on humanity when you celebrate somebody's death, even if you don't like who they are.
I mean, it's barbaric to even begin to think that way. I can remember I was in the Loop. I was probably still at IBM at the time, and I was right near City Hall, and I walked into a place to have a cup of coffee, and who's sitting at the counter but Everett Dirksen, who was our Illinois senator.
We have a building named after him in the city now, right?
Yeah, he was known as the Great Orator. I saw him, so I went up and introduced myself, and he was an interesting guy. He had white hair and nose all fuzzy and so on. Classic politician in terms of the look and so on. The two senators from Illinois, and it was for at least a decade, was Everett Dirksen was a Republican, and Paul Douglas was a Democrat. And they were poles apart in terms of their political views. Dirksen was a conservative, and Douglas was a Democrat, so he was liberal. But they could discuss and argue points in terms of, how much money should we provide for people, and what the tax structure should be, and things like that, liberal versus conservative. But it was all done in a civilized manner. Politics was, it was rough and tumble. You had Daley running the city. Right. Okay. But at the same time, it was much, much more civilized. People could talk and discuss issues. And when it came to the country, then it was everybody. It's always 100% for the country if there was some issue like a war or whatever. Yeah, it was worlds of difference between what we see today.
Yeah, let's take a little side street before we continue on the timeline. The American people during World War II, I mean, the common enemy was identified. There was no question about who the common enemy was. And whenever a population has a common enemy, they come together. Like that was, to me, the richest time in our American history was during World War II. Not only the patriotism of the guys to go out and fight, and women, like there were guys that they signed up on these, December 8th, right after Pearl Harbor, and some of them couldn't make it because of, some kind of physical disability, and they killed themselves.
Oh yeah.
So
no, it was that. Let me tell you about the patriotism, because I remember that as a kid. Every car had a sticker in the window. It was in an A, a B, or a C. An A meant you had a war critical job, and that means you could go pull into a gas station and fill up your car, I guess, as needed. Okay. If you had a B sticker, that meant your job wasn't war critical, and you got maybe, I'm just guessing, I don't know what the numbers. I guess we could Google it and find out, but that meant maybe you got like 40 gallons a month, or maybe 25 gallons a month, and that's all you could get. If you had a C sticker, you got maybe 15 gallons a month, and that's all you were going to get to drive your car. Okay, we didn't have butter on the table as a kid. All the butter went to the armed forces, and we had to eat margarine. Okay, as a kid, I can remember we had metal drives where everybody would go out and find every piece of scrap metal they could. We'd all take it to the school, which was the central point, and dump it in a big container. And you're talking about old bicycle wheels, old silverware, anything made out of metal. And we'd have and then they'd have rubber drives where you'd try to find old tires, things like that. Get all of that. Then they had paper drives where you bring in bundles of paper and take it all for the war effort. Everybody was involved. In school, they'd set up a table, I think it was like once a week, where all the kids would come up with their pennies, nickels, and dimes and buy war stamps that we put in our little booklets. And we would use, and then of course, eventually when war was over, they would pay you for however many stamps you had.
You were giving the government kind of a loan, right?
You were paying for the war, and that's over and above the war bonds and all the other things that they were selling. But even the kids in grammar school were contributing. Everything was involved. I can remember as I grew up in Oak Park, right at the corner of Chicago and Harlem. Harlem Avenue was a main thoroughfare, north and south.
Just by there the other day.
Okay. I can remember standing on the corner watching the convoys go by of Army trucks. And when I'm talking about a convoy, Frank, it would take a half an hour for the convoy to pass.
And when you're a boy, you're in amazement.
I stand there watching the whole thing, and you're waving at the trucks, and some of the guys would wave back at you and so on. And that I probably that if that happened once, it probably happened 20 times during the war, where you'd see that stuff. We had air raid
drills.
And the planes would come over and they'd drop papers and stuff.
Oh, I didn't know that they did that.
Oh yeah. And blackout drills, all of that stuff. Yeah, it was, everybody was involved. And you're right, from patriotic, it was without question.
So just staying on the subject for a bit, because you lived through that. And you lived through the Korean War, and they call the Korean War the Forgotten War. Was your feeling being alive at the time that it was the forgotten war? Like it didn't get.
Oh no! By that time I was like in 8th grade. Korean War was a big deal. I mean, it was all over the papers all the time. I can remember when they went over there to help, and they pushed. No, yeah, yeah. When they first got there, the Americans were in big trouble. The North Koreans crossed the 38th parallel, and he pushed them all the way back down until they were at the very bottom of Korea. And I think I can even remember the name of the city. It was Busan, and they were surrounded. And that's when Truman put MacArthur in charge. MacArthur went in, and then he did the Incheon landing, which was a brilliant military maneuver. Like he backdoored them and landed the troops in there, and then they just went in and destroyed the North Koreans in South Korea, and then went into North Korea and pushed it all the way up to the border with China, and that's when China entered the war. And then
didn't they throw like 1 million troops at us or something?
Like, yeah, at least 1 million. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like overnight. Yeah, the communist Chinese, and then it finally got to the point where right at the 38th parallel, it ended up as a stalemate. Mm-hmm. Same as today, all these decades later.
And then
no, it was a big deal.
Okay, and then let's transition into Vietnam. When I was a younger man, and I look at the history of Vietnam and how all the young people were protesting, I'm like, those are a bunch of damn hippies and stuff. A lot of their methodology was correct. Like we shouldn't have been there, in my opinion.
No, we shouldn't have. No.
And
actually, either we shouldn't have been there, or Washington should have butted out, because then the Americans would have just walked all over them and won the war. It would have been a Chinese issue again, but certainly not a Vietnamese issue.
They restricted us, so we couldn't win.
Yeah,
and whether we should have been there or not, we could have done.
No, if just like you see the difference between today, when the Democrats like Obama and Biden get involved with the military, they totally screw it up. When Trump gets involved, he says to the generals, "Get it done," and it gets done, because these guys know what they have to do to win. It's are we in this to win, or World War II with Patton, right? Patton understood what was going on. He says, "Hell, let's not stop here. Let's go to Berlin, and let's go to Moscow." Which was crazy, but at least
he said, "Give me these 14 German divisions that we've captured, and I'll go all the way to Moscow, because the threat is there now."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they killed him,
and he knew it, and that's why he died. Yeah, absolutely.
This wasn't a car accident.
No,
so, man, we could talk about that stuff forever.
Oh boy.
Okay, and then the last question on this little side trip we took here on war. So, when you were alive through the Vietnam era, you're in your 20s, and were you in support of the war? And at some time later, you realized that it was not what it would appear to be, or were you against it the whole time?
No, I was for it. I was for the U.S. I was hoping that they could defeat the communists, clearly. And then at the end of it, I was just these guys could use the old expression I grew up with. These guys could screw up a rock fight. Mm-hmm. They couldn't do anything right, and it was by that time, just get out.
I'm very patriotic, and I talk to veterans all the time because they wear their hats and they get the license plates. I really embrace the freedom that I have and the price they paid. And the Vietnam guys, they all have terrible stories, and the worst part of their stories is when they came home. Like, we really treated them terribly.
One of my good friends, a guy that I'm in a Bible study with, was a Green Beret during Vietnam. Okay, and he the most he's ever talked about regarding Nam was how They were based in Fort Bragg. That's where the Green Berets were based. So what they would do is they would get on a plane. They would fly all the way over to Vietnam. They would run their mission, finish their mission, and then fly all the way back to Bragg until their next mission. And he was part of that. Never says anything about it. I've never heard Larry mention a word about what he did. Every now and then he'll do some little side things about clothes or something, but in terms of what they did over there, you can't get a word out of them.
And if they're doing that, if they're spending all that money to fly you out there and fly you back, your missions are very surgical and dangerous.
Yeah. And he never talks about how long a mission was either. My guess is these guys were back in the super boonies for quite some time doing whatever it is they did. Like I mentioned in World War II, I had some uncles who were in the service. One of them, my Uncle Joe, was in the infantry. And the only story that he ever told about his time in the war was, he said, so there they were, and I can't remember whether it was Italy or in France, he said, and this tankers comes by and he says, hey, I lost my gunner. Anybody interested in climbing up on the tank and taking over? And my Uncle Joe said, hey, beats walking. He said, I'll do it. He said he got shot at more on that one day he was at that he'd ever had in his entire time in the Army. That's the only story he ever told. So we're visiting his house one day, and he goes into his office and brings out his CIB, his combat infantryman badge. He gives it to my son, Ross. Ross still has it. Ross was probably 7 or 8 at the time. He says, here, you can have this, okay? At his funeral, I walk into the funeral parlor, and there are laid out 2 Purple Hearts, 2 Purple Hearts, 2 bronze stars. He never said squat.
You don't want to be getting bronze stars. You know what I mean? You want to slide through without having to get that stuff.
That's over and above for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. 2 of them.
I interviewed a Vietnam veteran who had 2 bronze stars. That's amazing. Can you imagine the storms they carry? All of that crap they went through, and they don't talk about it.
I just finished watching Band of Brothers over the weekend.
I watched a little bit of it too.
Okay.
Great piece of film.
Yeah. And those guys are the same way.
That's why I'm such a patriot.
Yeah.
I never say I'm having a bad day. Never, ever. And it's because of one conversation I had with a combat Marine from World War II. He was the father of one of my trading floor buddies, Mr. Allen. He had 3 amphibious landings. The last one was Iwo Jima. And his story is he was part of the 3rd wave. And, the Japanese didn't start to counterattack until the beaches were flooded with Marines, because they had the big sand dunes and stuff. They were trapped like rats.
Yep.
So he was coming in on that 3rd wave when the Japanese started firing their artillery, and 2 of the 3 landing craft that he was part of were blown out of the water. And when he got to the beach under heavy fire, the door opened, and he said, the first thing I saw was a Marine with his legs blown off, bobbing in the water, looking at me to help him. He said, he didn't realize that he was already dead. I didn't have time to help him. Everything went downhill from there. It's an 80-year-old man telling me about a day in the life of him as a 19-year-old. And I got the chills. And I said to myself, I will never say I'm having a bad day, because I will never have anything like that reset my perspective. So that's one of the reasons I'm so patriotic. I can't even imagine your emotions and your whatever physical intensity you have is in this microcosm. You don't know if you're going to live the next minute.
So
you're fighting for your life.
So let me tell you a little sidelight that relates to that. When I was in the National Guard, we went in through the National Guard Armory out in Elgin. It's an infantry unit, and we all went in because we're all college kids, and they told us, yeah, your MOS is going to be clerk typist. Okay, well, so we go to basic training, and we get finish basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, and we go up to see our postings for where we go next, and we're all expecting light weapon, like clerk typist, and the MOS, the position number for that is 113, and we all look up our names, and next to our names is 111, light weapons infantry. Dog face is what our job. That's the bad news. The good news is our posting for our next training, and we trained every day for 6 months, by the way, every single day for 6 months. Our posting was Fort Ord, California. All the other guys went to New Jersey, and this is in November.
Oh, wow.
So we thought we died and gone to heaven.
Yeah.
So we're out in California, running all over the California hills, learning how to be soldiers. Shot every weapon that you could think of, did all the training. We went from basic training to advanced individual training to basic unit training to advanced unit training over the 6 months.
May I ask, what was the primary infantry weapon at that time?
The M1.
Still
Was the M1. That's what we had. And
which is an amazing weapon.
One of Ross's buddies has one, and every time we go to the range, that's what I shoot. I love it. And I qualified sharpshooter. I was just a few points away from expert.
Yeah.
Okay, but I qualified sharpshooter. Then I qualified expert later on the carbine. So anyway,
The 30 carbine or
the 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same one.
That's like a pea shooter though compared to the M1, isn't it? But short range is good, right?
Yeah, and that's how you have to use it. I mean, the barrel's much shorter. I mean, the M1 is a beast. I mean, if you get hit by an M1 round, you're in big trouble.
Yep, a heavy rifle too,
and 11 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it Andrew who has Andrew has a carbine, right?
No, he has the M1.
Somebody we went shooting with Ross had a 30 carbine. I thought it was Andrew as well.
I don't know. That's interesting. I'd love to shoot it. You'd much rather carry that carbine. Believe me.
My son, he's on the top row there. He's in a machine gun position. He shot expert in the Marine Corps, so he got to be like the range master sometimes.
Yeah.
And he said
that's a dangerous job, by the way.
It's particularly dangerous when one of your high sergeants takes the rifle and he crosses the plane of the bodies, and he had to run up to this sergeant who was a combat veteran and say, "Hey, Sarge, you moved your rifle across the plane of our bodies here." And he basically said, "F you." And then another sergeant ran over and said, "Oh no, he's right." And whatever beef they had. But so,
oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, so great stuff. So now,
by the way, just FYI, got fired the M1, BAR.
Ooh, I want one of those.
30 caliber machine gun. Fired the bazooka, 3.5-inch rocket launcher.
What did you shoot that at? Do you remember?
Yeah, in old tanks hull out in the field in California.
Cool.
Yeah, didn't hit it. I mean, there was some. It's a ballistic flight path, unless you're right next to something, because it's
you got to kind of arch it in.
Yeah, it's not like firing a rifle at it for sure. So yeah, the only weapon that I fired that I was horrible at, and this was in Fort Ord, was the 45. And I'm convinced that the 45s they gave us were probably so loose. If I was aiming
For
there,
sure.
it probably would end up over here. I couldn't hit anything with it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I just can't help myself. So the M1 Grand was a 30-06 round.
Yep.
And was that also in the BAR?
Yeah, same round.
And the difference would be the
Same
BAR
round
could
in the
be fully
machine
auto.
gun. Yeah, BAR. Yeah, you could fire full auto.
That's a big weapon too.
Oh, yeah, that's 20 pounds.
Holy
That
cow.
sucker is heavy. Yeah, the machine gun I was really impressed with when I fired that because with the M1 you're firing and the BAR you're firing it at 100 yards. Okay, and then when you go into combat, you'll be doing different positions and they'll have pop-ups and at different distances. But machine gun, we started at like 300 or 400 yards with that sucker, and you could pretty well lay the rounds in there. It was an impressive weapon.
Is that because of the tracers too? I mean,
we didn't have tracers.
Oh, wow.
You're just seeing where the rounds hit. The only time we used tracers was, and Larry talks about it. That's one of the few things he talks about from his his training when he was in the Army. There's an event I can't remember the name of it, but what they did is they got us all like the better part of a company, at least a couple of platoons of guys. We were all in foxholes, and all the guys in the foxholes have M1s, and then they set up machine guns on the extremities of it, and it's at night, and they give us all tracers, and at the word go, everybody fires, and you keep on firing until you're out of ammo. And by the way, tracers are they make your M1 dirty as hell. They were they hated you, and they do it at night, and it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen because, Frank, all it is a solid wall of rounds going out there between the machine guns and all these guys firing. You're just going through clip after clip after clip as fast as you can pull the trigger on your M1. And the whole idea is, this is how you stop an assault. And
so let me
amazing.
So strategically, if you had the machine guns on the end, is that so they can cover
crossfire? It's
crossfire, but
they're
then
doing crossfire, and everybody else is shooting straight ahead.
Right,
of them.
and they have a better odd of hitting something that's trying to flank you too, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, well, this would be to fight a frontal assault, but it's just a weapons display is basically what it is. But they do that just to show you what it's like. So the point I was making was you're talking about the guys that don't have the don't tell the stories. So we're near the end of the 6 months, and we're on doing advanced unit training. So we're out in the field doing assaults and so on. And things you learn, like you see pictures of war pictures of guys walking along a ridge or along a rail track and so on. No, you never ever walk on a ridge. You walk below the ridge. So because you walk on a ridge, you're sitting duck. Who would do that? It's insane. So we learned all of those things, and again, this is in the early 60s now, spring of 60. So all our NCOs are all combat vets, either Korea or World War II and Korea. And we have this old fart, gray hair, thin as a rail, looks like he's in his mid to late 40s as our chief NCO on this exercise that we're on. And we go through the whole thing, and as we're going through it, and we're walking through the woods and so on, the thought crosses my mind as we're here. I said, if this is real, and some guys are behind some trees or bushes ahead of us, there's no way I'm going to walk out of here. I'm dead. I mean, it's just evidence as a nose on your face. That I mean, the only way you make it through those wars is number one, if you're good and pay attention to everything, and number two, even more important, if you're lucky.
Mm.
The only way you're going to make it out of that is by God's grace.
I agree.
If the Lord wants you to make it, that's the only way you're going to make it out of it. Otherwise, you're dead. And when we finished that exercise, and we had the review of the exercise, that old sergeant said, "You know, you guys did pretty well here. You might have even made it out alive."
Wow.
And that was the biggest compliment I ever had.
He's speaking from real stuff.
Yeah, but that was after 6 months of training every single day.
I had a veteran on here, William Taylor Jr. He wrote a book on full automatic, surviving 13 months in Vietnam. It took him 50 years to write the book, and he talked about in great detail his 13 months in Vietnam, and just horrific stories. He was able to do it after a lot of, you got to push through a lot of stuff to write a book like that, because these guys don't want to talk about it or think about it. And he has saved a lot of lives. The book helped others get through their stuff. But he was in one of those frontal attacks where they were completely outnumbered. And he put all of his grenades right in front of him, and he could hear them like they were right outside the foxhole. So he was lobbing a grid pattern of grenades, X amount of feet, then X plus 5 feet, then X plus 10 feet. He just was like you lay depth charges. And he said, they would come and they would attack us, but it wouldn't be an all night thing because they knew we would call in the airstrikes. So they would do damage and they would get out of there. And he goes, in the morning, there were 3 dead guys out there that he hit with the grenades. So again, I can't even imagine my worst day. Those guys at that moment, they would trade my worst day, 10 of my worst days put together than to do that. So that's my perspective.
Remember from Band of Brothers, that crazy lieutenant is talking to the private in the foxhole that says he's nervous and afraid about. He said, I didn't even fire my weapon. And the lieutenant says to him, "You know what your problem is? Your problem is you think you're alive. Okay? You got to accept the fact that you're dead. You're not going to make it.
Wow.
Then you can go fight your battle."
We kind of talked about the wars, World War II, Korean War, your mindset on Vietnam. And now where does that put us in your timeline now? So you're making money, you're a successful salesman.
I spent my first 7 years with IBM, and then I left along with 2 of my IBM buddies, and we joined another computer company. And then I just continued on from that point, staying in the computer industry, but moving from company to company. And by the way, the great bulk of the computer industry was built by guys that learned how to be good computer people at IBM. IBM's training programs were phenomenal. And I was at IBM, I call it their Camelot days, when we were the 800-pound gorilla.
So what happened there that you would leave? Were there better offers, more growth potential?
Well, interestingly, 2 of my buddies left and joined a new startup in the computer industry. And they talked to me about joining them. And I thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, okay, I think I'll take a look at it. When my marketing manager found out I was going to do that, because I was one of the senior sales guys then. My accounts were Admiral, the Admiral TV company. Sunbeam was another one of my accounts. Echo Housewares. I mean, I had a bunch of big accounts. When my marketing manager found out, he called me and he said, you can't do this. It's a huge mistake, and I think I'm going to do it. He took me to the branch manager. Branch manager talked to me, and I said, I'm going to do it. Branch manager called the district manager. District manager invited me downtown to have lunch with him. Okay, and he tried to talk me out of it. And by the time we finished, he said, "You son of a bitch, you're going to leave, aren't you?" I said, Yeah, I think I am. Because he offered me promotions. He said, well, hey, we want you to stay. How about if I promote you to the district staff and you can do it? And I said, I think his name was Bob. I said, Bob, you don't understand. Okay. I don't want to do those jobs. Okay. I'm interested in staying in sales and making money. And I think this new opportunity is a great way to do that. So long story short, from there, I moved on to a different company, and I stayed in the business as a sales guy, and finally got to the point where the guys offered me a job as a branch manager, and then from there to a district manager, and their regional manager, and so on. And so then I stayed in the sales management side of it after that.
And you did level up your income as you had planned, yes?
Oh, yeah. I got to the 70s, and I got the 70s, and that's the first time I made 50K. And then I got to the
in the 70s.
In the 70s.
Yeah,
and
that's like 250 now, right? Maybe more.
Well, late 70s, in 79, I think it was, made 165.
Wow.
Which is like $500,000 today. Yeah. So I got to the point where I was, and I bought myself a Ferrari at one point in time.
Was it a new one?
No, it was, I bought, this was in the early 80s. I bought a
308?
The original Boxer 365 GT BB. GT Berliner Boxer.
That's a gorgeous car.
Oh, it is. And
because that was the evolution all the way up to like the 430, right?
Yeah. It was after the 308.
Wow.
It was our first big muscle mid-engine car. Yeah.
What color? Red? I was going to say red, I hope.
Oh, yeah. That model didn't have injectors. It had 4 triple throat Weber carburetors on it.
What did you pay for that car? Do you remember?
Yeah. A lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my plan was to keep it until Enzo died, because then it would become like a collector's piece. And I didn't quite make it. You talked about hard times. I ran into some hard financial times back in the day, so I ended up selling it, and I lost.
Wait a minute. After you bought the Ferrari, you ran into hard financial times?
Oh, yeah.
How did that happen? You should have been ultra flush.
In the 80s, we ran it. That's when the whole Rust Belt thing happened. And selling into the Fortune 100, which is what I did in the Midwest, meant that life got really tough for people selling high-priced hardware into companies that are losing money. Why am I going to spend more money for more equipment if if my business isn't growing and I'm losing money? So we ran into some hard times from that standpoint, and it lasted for a while.
When you say we, you mean you and your family?
And I'm talking about the industry.
The industry, okay.
I had buddies. We were all in the same boat. Okay, we were used to selling a lot of equipment and making big money. I mean, I sold a deal, First National Bank of Chicago, it was big enough that they had to take it up to the board of directors to get approval. This was in 70, right about the time this was when I made all the money before I bought the Ferrari. So this would have been in 79 or 80. Okay, a $22 million deal. Today's money, that's probably what, 300-400 million.
Mm-hmm.
The equivalent of that. Okay, those are the kinds of deals that I was involved in and selling into. I mean, they had their pilot project was in Paris. They flew me over to Paris for the big party when they turned it on. Just as
isn't that kind of ironic because they flew your father out there too, right?
Yeah. Firestone did.
Yeah, that's interesting.
My dad, yeah. So there I am having dinner at Le Tour d'Argent in Paris, looking out the window at Notre Dame, okay, as a thank you dinner from one of the guys. I mean, a restaurant that's been in business for 500 years.
Yeah, I got to take a quick side street here.
Sure.
Chicago Avenue and Harlem.
Yeah.
Was Peterson's Ice Cream there?
One block.
I just meant time-wise. That was open up in the 40s, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No, the Peterson's was a big treat for us. Growing up, Dad would go get paid on a Friday. He'd stop and get chop suey. And that was a big treat for us, that we'd have chop suey from the little Chinese restaurant on Marion Street. Okay, and he'd bring it home. Going to a movie was a treat for us as kids. Having ice cream was a treat.
And the Lake movie theater was there then, right?
Yep, that's where we would go.
You know how I know so much about Oak Park? Because in the middle of my life, I grew up in Berwyn.
Yeah.
So
sure,
a lot of my friends were from Oak Park. Yeah,
right down the street. Yep. Sure. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, back to where we were. You had some hard times. Where does Sylvia come in?
My buddy and I goes back to the 60s, the JFK thing. We were up on Marine Drive. We borrowed some bikes because nobody owned bikes. No adults didn't own bikes in those days. No bike, right? What are you kidding? Somehow we got our hands on some bikes and decided to take a ride through along the lake. So we started in Lawrence and we started riding the bike south. We get down to the Bilmont area, and I think there were like 3 or 4 of us guys. And one of the guys pulls up on the next a blanket. These 2 chicks are out there in their bikinis. And one of the guys we were riding with knew one of them. They stopped and started talking, and my wife was one of the 2 chicks. And I ended up started chatting with her.
Chicks. So improper now.
That's what they call it, right? Long story short, a couple of weeks later, I call her, ask her out for dinner, and we started dating. And a year later, we ended up getting married.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah.
So when did you get engaged then?
So I met her this would have been the summer of '64. We probably got engaged maybe October, November. And we got engaged at the great bar on the top of the Morrison Hotel that they tore down when they put up the new First National Bank building.
Wow.
So that's where I gave her the ring, on the top of the Morrison Hotel.
Did she know it was coming or no?
No. Well, she probably guessed. I mean, we had been dating pretty steadily.
And did you do it the traditional one knee way, or
no? We were just sitting in a nice little corner in Morrison, looking out over the city of Chicago. I mean, it's like 40 stories up. It's way at the top of the building, and I just pull out the ring, and that's how it all started. Yeah,
and we're like
62 years ago.
That's amazing. I'll tell you a little funny joke.
And by the way, she's Canadian. She's a green card holding Canadian.
Yeah, interesting. How did the wedding go down? Did you have a big wedding?
In Hamilton, yeah. In Hamilton, Ontario was where she's from.
Oh, you went there.
Yeah.
And she's a big family?
2 siblings, some aunts and uncles.
Where in Canada?
Hamilton.
Which is where?
Just outside of Toronto. Hamilton is to Toronto like maybe Naperville is to Chicago.
Okay.
It's the way to think of it. It's a pretty good sized city. It's probably, then it was a couple 100,000. Now it's about 500,000. It's Hamilton is like the Pittsburgh of Canada. That's where the big steel mills are.
I got you. So you were married in 64?
65.
65, and you met in 64.
Yeah.
I don't want to make you feel old, but this guy was born in 64. So
you don't have to worry about me feeling old, Frank. I feel it every day when I get up. Like I said, I get the comment all the time, well, you don't look 88. I say, yeah, you ought to see me from the inside.
That's funny. When my godfather was alive, they had a big party at a banquet hall for his 55th wedding anniversary. And he was greeting everybody in the lobby of this venue. And so I gave him a hug. I'm like, Uncle Mar, 55 years, what a great accomplishment. I mean, how does it feel to be married for 55 years? He goes, like 5 minutes underwater.
Beautiful line. I'll have to steal that thing. I like that.
And then I was a part owner of a restaurant. The server ran up to me and she goes, the couple at table, whatever, they've been married for 65 years. It was some number in the 60s. I don't remember exactly. So I ran over to the table and they were sitting in a booth opposite of each other. And they had a younger male, female, one of their kids and their spouse. And I just kneeled by the table and I kind of put my chin like this. And I said, guys, amazing. What, 65 years? What do you attribute that? Like, how did you do that? And the old man goes, well, we're both mostly deaf and that really helps.
That's beautiful.
And when you get older, you don't care anymore. You don't care what you say. You say it the way it is, and that's a beautiful thing.
That's one of the joys of getting older.
Yeah.
That you don't have to be politically correct in things that you say all the time. You know, you said, how the hell with it, you know.
All right, so you're chugging along. You're married. So how old is Ross? Oh, well, Ross is now your oldest. You said your daughter.
Yeah.
Meredith is a little older.
Yeah. Meredith is born in 70 and Ross is born in 72.
Okay, so you got 5 years before you have your first kid. And what are you guys doing? You traveling?
Yeah, we did some of that. Our favorite place to go was Acapulco. So we made a few trips down there and enjoyed that. We were trying to have a kid. Sylvia miscarried probably within the first couple of years. And then after that, we were trying and then all of a sudden, you know, along came Meredith. And she was born in 70. Ross was born in 72.
Where were you living when the kids were born?
We were in River Forest. We had bought a house in River Forest, our first house.
Oh, I love River Forest. You have some like magnificent mansions, and you got some regular frame houses.
No, our first house, our starter house, was an old farmhouse that was built in the 1880s.
Oh wow!
Down at near on Gale Street, which is just off of Washington, in a great neighborhood. We had great neighbors, and we'd have parties all the time. It was a lot of fun. One of our neighbors across the street was Ed Tragey, the Tragey appliance store that had been on Madison Street in Forest Park for literally decades. And Ed was there, he and his family. So it was a great place for a starter. And that's where both kids were born. And then we bought a house in North River Forest after that, and continued on. We had 1, 2, 3. We had 4 different houses in River Forest over a 27-year period.
And getting nicer and nicer, I bet, right?
Yeah, they were all, well, the last one was the empty nester. So we finally sold the house that we raised the kids in. We were there for 12 years. And then, the kids were in college and gone. So we did our last one was our empty nester before he ended up moving to California
and your kids went to the same high school you went to.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And they went to the River Forest Grammar School system, which was outstanding.
Still is.
Yeah.
What about, do you know if your kids had any of the same teachers you had? Because the teachers stick around a long time.
No. They were all long gone by the time.
Okay.
By the time they were in school. Yeah.
That would make sense because that'd be over 30 years after you left.
Yeah.
This is a sidebar. I told you I spent the middle part of my life in Berwyn.
Yeah.
I met my wife at McDonald's as a crew person on Roosevelt Road in Harlem. And then when I became a manager, they transferred me to the McDonald's just north of Lake Street on Harlem, the River Forest store.
Oh, yeah.
So it's still there.
Oh, it sure is.
I think they're on their second iteration of it. All the cops and the firemen would come in, and I always gave them free food, which I wasn't supposed to do. I was supposed to do a half price, And I liked them all. And one of the cops in River Forest was a FFL. He was a federal firearms dealer. And, he's like, if you need any guns, I can get you whatever you want, as long as you got the card. So I would like a Colt Python. I never had a Colt Python. And, that was like a week's pay for me for the Colt Python.
Oh, I'm sure.
He brought it in, and we took it out of the case at the counter. We're looking at this brand new Colt Python, But anyway, I wound up taking the agility test and the written test for police and firemen in River Forest, because at that time they were like one of the highest paying suburbs for police and firemen. And they hired an independent firm to do it, to remove the politics of, so-and-so's son's going to be a policeman. Like Berwyn was very corrupt like that. All my buddies were firemen and policemen that they got the jobs through their dads.
Sure.
And then I swerved off and got a part-time job on the trading floor, and I got starry-eyed there, and I'm like, man, I can make a lot of money here. And I wound up quitting McDonald's, quitting college to pursue this career on the trading floor. And then I got the call from the fire department. Like they said, your name's up on the list now. We're picking you. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. So I turned down being a River Forest fireman. But that was a cool agility test. They did it at one of the schoolyards there. And the hardest part of the test, they make you bench press, and you got to climb up the ladder on the fire truck, which is wavering in the wind, and you got to do a ladder hang and all this stuff. But they put full equipment on you, including the mask, but they blacked the mask out. Okay, so you got the hose, and you got the tank on your back. The tube isn't connected to the tank, but you have all the weight on, and they put you on all fours in the gymnasium, and they put a rope in your hand. And they go, this rope is your lifeline. Get out of the house as quickly as possible. So you never let go of the rope. Guys would let go of the rope to do that. They'd pull you up. You fail that part. You got to slide like this. And then they would wrap the rope around couches and stuff. And you can't see anything.
Good.
And because you're breathing heavy, and it tests you for claustrophobia. And some of the guys ripped off the mask. It was like they couldn't do it. So It was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool test.
But it's very, very real, because it simulates you're in a house full of smoke and you got to get out of there. Mm-hmm. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, that was 1987, and the only reason I remember the year is because my buddy had a brand new Buick Grand National. That's the year they came out. So he had a brand new one, and we took that for a ride.
I once owned a Buick Stage 1.
What year is that, a T-type?
It was just called a Stage 1. There was the Buick 455, and then there was the Buick Stage 1, which was a 455 upgraded.
Is that a GS? A Buick GS?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a GS model, and it was a Stage 1. I can remember racing one of my neighbor's kids who had a Corvette. We went over to Washington Boulevard, and you went from Thatcher to First Avenue. It was just, it was a perfect drag strip. Okay. And we got there, and said, go, and we both floor it. And I'm right with the Corvette until we get up near Proviso High School. And then I'm looking ahead, and you've got the intersection of Washington and First Avenue, and there's all kinds of traffic. So we're going like hell. I'm sure we're well over 100 miles an hour. Okay. I see that, and I slam on my brakes. He keeps going, and by the time he hits his brakes, he spins right into the middle of the intersection and gets hit.
Oh,
And I see this happen. And I won't tell you the name, but it was a very prominent family. I see this happen, and my first reaction is, "Oh my God, is he okay?" And you can see that he's okay. I just slowly turn around and go the other way. I didn't want to be anywhere near that. It was amazing.
yeah. So my brother-in-law, Jim, who lives with me here, his buddy owns a garage in LaGrange. It's the old 1920 style, 2 pumps on the corner. And he doesn't pump gas there, but he's an auto mechanic. And him and a couple other guys, they race GSs. So they build them up and they're running 10 seconds, quarter mile, but they're the old GSs, like you said.
I think it was around 1970. I think it was look up this stage 1.
Yeah, I know what it is. Okay. They called that the gentleman's muscle car, I think, the Buick version, because that was like the Buick version of like the Chevelle SS with the 454. Yeah. So that's cool. You had some killer cars, man.
Oh yeah, it's GTO 65 GTO. Was the most beautiful car I ever had. Probably
that's the headlights like this, right?
Next to the Ferrari. Yeah. It was a beautiful car.
Don't tell me. I know it had a 6-pack. 383?
389.
389. Okay,
yeah, with a 4-barrel.
Yeah, that's a beautiful design.
Oh yeah, it was so pretty.
All right, my friend. We are now having kids.
Yeah.
And you're still plugging along with your job. Tell me some highlights with the kids. I mean, I think the world of Ross. I don't know your daughter. Ross is he's a geek.
Yeah,
like smart wise.
Yeah, he's a good kid. So is my daughter. She's very, very bright.
Yeah,
she's in the medical business. She got her degree in Louisiana, University of Louisiana in Lafayette, in hospital information management, and she now does medical coding.
Mm-hmm.
She works out of the house, her house, and is affiliated with the Loyola Group. So she does medical coding for inpatient stuff. And she's been doing it for a number of years now. And Frank, my guess is she probably knows more about the human body and symptoms and so on than most of the doctors.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, she's amazing.
Where does she live?
She's in Oak Park.
Okay, so you're close to your kids, right?
Just a few blocks away.
Yeah, where's Ross?
Ross is in Old Irving.
Old Irving. Okay, so he's a little bit of a, not too much of a hike to Oak Park, but
25 minutes.
And then your daughter has a daughter, Sienna.
Sienna.
So you said she's getting married.
She's getting married in October.
Nice.
Jake O'Mara is his name. He's as Irish as the day is long.
Yeah.
He is an interesting guy. He's just recently got a job as a special ed teacher over at Oak Park High. And he's a wrestler. He was a state champ. He was in high school.
What an interesting combination that is.
Yeah. And he is still the wrestling coach. Ideally, what he'd love to do, I think, is end up being the wrestling coach at OPRF. And he's coaching some of the underclassmen now. And my guess is if he hangs in there, that'll probably be what he ends up doing.
You have to have a special kind of disposition and demeanor to be a special ed teacher.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have that skill set.
I wouldn't be, not in a million years could I do that.
That's what's interesting to me, that he's a wrestler, and that usually people who do that, they just have a different makeup. They're not necessarily athletic. They're more compassionate and stuff like that, where the wrestler mentality is, that's a warrior mentality.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's really cool.
But I think what helps him is the discipline that you need to be a wrestler is something that he applies to his job. He's a very disciplined guy in the way he approaches things.
That's awesome. And I know a little bit about Ross's history. He was with Domicile, and then he quit and started his own company.
Yeah.
And boy, he did well. Those guys are amazing.
One of the computer companies I worked for was Hewlett-Packard, way back when. And I was lucky enough to work with HP during the time that both Dave Packard and Bill Hewitt were still involved.
Mm.
When I got the job, they flew me out to Palo Alto, which is where their world headquarters is or was. I don't know if it's still there, for a new employee orientation. And so I'm sitting there in the orientation thing, and who comes in to give the class speech but Dave Packard, who had just left the Reagan administration, where he had been working as a special advisor and some factor. And Dave Packard was very big, tall, imposing guy, and he was the salesman. And Bill Hewitt was the engineer and the creative part of it. And they formed a team. They knew each other from the old days, and they started the company out of Bill Hewitt's garage. And their first product was, he made a power supply for some device, and Hewitt figured out how to do it when nobody else could in their garage, and that's how the company started.
Unbelievable.
And they worked together as a team for decades. And that's when I get together with Ross and his partner Andrew. Ross brought Andrew on and made him the partner. I said, you guys, you work together as well as Hewlett and Packard did.
That's awesome.
Okay, because Andrew is the technical side and the detail-oriented side, and Ross is the sales, relationship guy, and it works beautifully. They just complement each other so well.
And I'll tell you, if we have a zombie apocalypse, I want those two guys standing next to me. So
yeah.
Andrew with the guns and stuff. Holy crap.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Go ahead with your kids, and then we'll get back to the work thing.
My kids are sweethearts, both of them. Love them to death.
Well, they're a tribute to your and your wife's success as parents. It's hard enough to get them through childhood in any era, and then that they become productive and they don't have their hands in your pocket anymore is a big deal too.
Well, we made sure that growing the classic line that I used to use when they would grumble about getting wanting Sylvia Meredith helping her mom or Ross doing stuff around the house. I said, hey guys, remember, we're a family, okay? And in a family, everybody gets to pitch in and help out. That's what makes us a family. So, quit grumbling. You do your part, okay? And we were clear about that. And both of them were never bashful about going out and finding extra ways to make money and things like that.
That's awesome.
It was just something that it was kind of a natural thing for them, because I guess they watched Sylvia and I, and we were always doing stuff, or looking for ways to make money. My
contention on parenting and things that interest me, I think through to the end. What makes a good parent? And is it the millions of decisions we make on behalf of our children? And then my answer to that is no, because I've seen some great parents and their kids didn't make it through childhood. And then I've seen some crappy parents, mine being one of them, both of them, and I made it. So what's the formula? And I just came up with two things. Number one, that you give your kids unconditional love that they feel deep in their heart, even when you're sticking your boot up their ass. And number two is you have to live your life in such a way that you want them to live their lives, because they're paying attention to you right out of the womb. So if you live your life like an asshole, they're going to turn out to be an asshole, likely. So you lead by example. And I think that, to me, that's the two most important things you can do. I think that's very true. And some of it is kind of stuff that you do unconsciously as you're living your life as part of that. Because
and both Meredith and Ross will both tell you that, he said we had the best childhood you can imagine in terms of where we lived and our lifestyle and stuff that we did, and they said we can't tell you how, they said it was a wonderful childhood, and from our perspective it was just, hey, we were just living our life, trying to deal with what life throws at you and see if you can grow. And it's part of the process. Ross and I had dinner last night. He just got back from Scotland. Well, he and his buddies did a golf trip over there.
What a place to golf!
Oh boy, yeah, he loved it. And I told him when he left, I wish you great weather, but I hope at least one day you get rain, wind, and all the nasty stuff. And he said, "Dad, we got it."
Yeah, Ross is a dynamic golfer, so
he loved every minute of it. But anyway, we had the conversation with him. I have a huge regret with the kids, though, and that is that I grew up with my parents were both they're both believers and they're Christians. So I grew up in their church, which was the first Romanian Baptist church, and it was located in Chicago. And interesting way to grow up. We went to church every Sunday. Our services were at night, every Sunday night, and a lot of our parents' social life was built around the church because all our friends were all members of the church. So a lot of that was part of our growing up. But all our services were in Romanian, and none of us spoke the language. So all the kids would go up to the balcony, and we'd be doing our thing while they were having a sermon. Yet we still grew up as part of the church and Christian beliefs. The Baptists are pretty basic in that. After college, I drifted away from church and was gone from the 60s, late 60s, to 1990.
When you say drifted away from the church,
didn't go to church at all.
But did you become a skeptic? Did you start to question all the stuff you were taught, or just didn't practice?
Just didn't practice, and as a result, gave our kids literally zero basis of the Christian religion. Okay, and in my old age, as I'm getting near to the day when I'm going to leave this mortal coil, it's very troubling for me because I know what's going to happen when I die. I'm going to have on my monument, his last breath on earth was his first breath in heaven. I know I'm going to heaven because I'm a strong believer in my Lord Jesus Christ. Okay, my kids have zero basis for that. That is a terrifying thought for me. That they don't. They're not believers because our mortal souls are in fact immortal. Okay, our bodies are going to be dust, but our spirit lives on. And there's only one or two places if you're a believer you're going to be. You're either going to be with the Lord, or you're going to be in a place that you can't even begin to imagine how horrible it's going to be. So, as a parent, you're looking at that.
Well,
that's
you still have time to do your best with them.
I do, and I've given them all books. I've got a special book I'm going to give to Ross based on the conversation I had over dinner last night. And by the way, it's a book by a guy by the name of Tim Keller. He's an interesting dude. He went to Manhattan, to the belly of the beast, and started a Presbyterian church there that ended up with over 5,000 members. And he wrote a book about how he dealt with all the New Yorkers, the secular people that infest New York, and how he dealt with all the issues that they would bring to him as a pastor of a church in Manhattan. And it's a fascinating book. And I want to give it to Ross because he has the same questions. He's asking the same questions that those guys were asking Tim Keller. And Tim Keller's book is all about, here's how I answered them, and here's how I dealt with them, and here's how we grew together.
I had a lapse in my faith, not practicing. I became skeptical, and this is in recent history. My belief is everything they tell us is pretty much a lie. How they've written the history books, they're lies. We could say World War II happened, but we can say the reasoning behind World War II, what they tell us, that's a lie. One shooter with JFK. I know better now. I've read enough books to know that that whole story about Oswald was fake. He was there, but he didn't even have a gun and pull a trigger. Anyway, that's my worldview. But I was subscribing to all the stuff they talk about, the universe and the Big Bang. I was choosing that over creation. And then when Dorothy got sick and she went quickly, kind of a blessing in one way. As a skeptic, I said, Jesus, if you're there, please show yourself. And then these things happen in succession each and every day after she died. And then there's no coincidence there. So the last thing that happened, there were 7 days in a row where I had 6 different encounters with people. I was at the grocery store not too long after Dorothy died. It was like 5 days after she died. I came back from San Diego. I had to leave her there because of the red tape and stuff. And I went to the grocery store for the first time, which was super hard for me because every time I'd go to the grocery store, I would call her or text her, I'm at Jewel, what do you need?
Yeah.
So I was in the grocery store. I had to take pause like 3 times because I was breaking down in the aisle. It was really hard for me. So I finished shopping, I checked out, and I rolled a cart over to the lottery machine to buy some lottery tickets. And there was an older man, big guy, like 6'5". He's getting lottery tickets, and he pulled the tickets out, and he turned, and he looked at me, and he walked up to me with an extended hand, and he goes, I know you. And I'm like, I'm Frank Lardino. He goes, I know who you are. He goes, my name's Raymond Zick. I am friends with you on Facebook. I'm sorry about Dorothy. I was the one who posted on your post that I also lost my wife to cancer. And we talked a little bit. And then without solicitation, this is a man I've never spoken to in my life. He went into his testimony of how he was a troublemaking young man, beat people up, robbed stores, whatever. And I'm like, why is he telling me this? I don't even know this guy. And then he went into how he found the Lord. And he got to the point in the conversation where he said, and then I found a Bible study group that changed everything for me in Elmhurst at Timothy Christian High School. And when he said that, I pointed at him like serious. I said, you're starting to scare me. He said, why? I go, I'll finish your story. So he finished his story about his testimony. And then I told him why I was skeptical. And he's like, you read the Bible? I said, no. He goes, you need to start to read the Bible because that is a living document. The truth will come to you. And he told me where to start. He told me about Christian religions and how they all shoot in different directions off the word. And he said, well, why did you tell me before that I scared you? I said, you know where my wife and her siblings went to high school? Timothy Christian in Elmhurst. So that's day 5 of the signs. I took that as a sign, Jesus, please show yourself. And then on day 7, I went to my Aunt Rose. I visit her every Friday. And I had a copy of my book, Warriors of Light, which is dedicated to her. Okay, so I came to her house. She's 90 years old. I'm reading the book to her, and she's funny. She's like, "You're a bullshitter. You're embellishing." I'm like, "I lived through this. I saw you do this stuff, and the stuff I wrote about before I was born, you told me from your mouth. I'm not embellishing. She is a saint, you know." So give me that book. So I hand her the book, and she's flipping the pages, and I always have on the TV set 1970s music channel, because I grew up with that. Right?
Okay, yeah.
So a song comes on by an artist named Gino Vanelli.
I know him.
So that was my mother's favorite artist.
Oh, yeah.
And my mother died when I was 18 of a heroin overdose.
I think I may have his album.
Okay, so
in my collection.
The song comes on, and nothing jolts me into my mother's memory more than like hearing his songs, right? So she's reading the book, and I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm doing this, and I'm meditating on my mother, and I'm thinking of very, very nice memories of my mother, and I'm smiling. And then I asked myself, did my mother meet my wife? Because now they're both in heaven. Do they meet each other? And my mother died at 37, and my wife died at 60. So is my 37-year-old wife, mother meeting my 60-year-old wife? Like, I'm going through these contemplations, and then I look at the TV set and I point to it. And I don't say anything out loud, but I said to my brain, don't you dare play Still the One. That was Dorothy's ringtone for me on her phone. That damn song came on right after. What are the odds that happened?
0.
So I pointed out the window and I go, I'm back, put my cross back on and stuff like that. So part of the faith system is you have to give it a chance. You have to ask for it and accept it.
No, that's so true. Yet here we are. And I mean, for example, my mom would continue to pray for me all the time and write me little notes and so on. And she died in 84, and I still wasn't back. I didn't get back until 1990. By the way, reason I got back is simple. I felt like there was a hole in my chest. It was just empty. And that's when I decided, one day I got up in the morning, Sunday morning, drove right down Jackson Avenue from our house in River Forest, walked into the First Presbyterian Church, sat down, and that was the beginning of my coming back to the Lord. Okay, years after my mom died. But, her prayers and the Spirit of the Holy Spirit, wouldn't let go of me. I'm praying that if it has to be that way with the kids, so be it. But if there's anything I can do, beating them over the head with it, which I can't do, okay, in terms of giving them ammunition is part of the process while I'm still here. I certainly, I consider that the reason I'm still here.
Maybe it's a pretty big admission to say you have regrets, because that's admitting your perceived failure. And I believe people who say, I have no regrets, think they're lying to themselves.
Oh, boy, yeah.
Now, I wouldn't change anything for most of my regrets because where I'm at, but your thing right there is something you would want to change.
Oh, yeah.
That's an interesting regret.
And again, they may have gone through all the Sunday school classes and so on and still walked away or whatever, but at least they would have had some foundation, and that's what they're missing. So that's what I'm trying to make up for, to give them some basis.
And this is just a counterpoint, not a counterpoint, but to go along with what you said. The training floor is a house of ill repute. It brings out the worst in people, the money, and a lot of the guys standing around me were Catholic school, Catholic high school. I'm talking good schools, Bennett and stuff. They were heathens. They either were faithless, or faith was way back in their rearview mirror, and they had the upbringing. So the upbringing doesn't always necessarily dictate the outcome.
Growing up in Oak Park and then in all the years we spent in River Forest, a lot of traders lived in those towns. So I used to bump into that stuff a lot.
I know a lot of those guys. I know a lot of guys who lived in those areas. So old age now, do you think about the now limited time you have left? Does that bother you? Do you fear death, or do you even think about it?
As you get older, Frank, you think about it. As you get older, the days are are numbered. They're getting shorter. Okay, that's the reality. And as much as you don't like to admit it, from a physical standpoint, you begin to feel it. You can see it, that like when you bend down, just getting up is more of a struggle than it ever was before, because you're losing the muscle mass and the strength and so on. So what you do is you try to compensate for that. Like, for example, I've been doing I haven't done it lately because of a number of issues, but from a health standpoint, I was invited to be part of a Northwestern study about 4 years ago. I got a mailer, and they were looking for candidates for this study for peripheral arterial disease. I think I got on their mailing list because I've had some issues with that in the past. So I responded to it, and I said, tell me about it. And they said, well, it's a 1-year program, and it requires exercise and nutrition, and come on down and talk to us. Let's see if you're a candidate. So I went through the vetting process, and they asked me to be a part of the program, and I did. And when I started the program, I had an issue in my left leg, peripheral arterial disease, and that it's the same thing as cardiac issue with blockage in arteries, except it's in the extremities, arms or legs, and mine was in my left leg. And I started the program. I couldn't walk more than maybe 100 yards, 150 yards before I have to stop because of the pain in my leg. I mean, it was excruciating. So starting out the program, it was walk 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week for 75 minutes. They wanted to start out at 75 minutes a week. And to get 15 minutes of actual walking in to start out, it would probably take me about a half an hour because I'd have to stop and rest that long. By the time I finished the program and from 75 minutes, then they'd go to 100 minutes, then 150, then 125, 150, 200 minutes, and so on. By the time I finished the program, I was walking 300 minutes a week without stopping for rest. That's 5 miles.
That's awesome.
I got, according to my Fitbit, I did over 1,000 miles the second year after I started the program, walking. Okay. And then 3 times a week using light weights just to keep some tone. I do stuff like that, just trying to maintain some sort of semblance of reasonable health as you get older. And I mean, all kinds of stuff starts to happen. I had a heart attack back in 2018, and I ended up with walking out of the hospital with 4 stents in my chest. Luckily, I didn't have to do open heart, and the stuff was stuntable. And then a year later, I had a 5th stent put in. And then last year, I had 3 more stents put in. So I've got a total of 8 in my chest.
You went from galvanized to copper, didn't you?
Yeah. No kidding. Okay. And the technology and all that stuff was interesting. Mom and Dad both died of heart attacks. Dad went at 74. And at the end, he was popping nitroglycerin like it was candy, just to deal with the arterial issues. And Mom died 10 years later in 84, same thing. Okay. If they were living today, they both would have had another 10 or 15 years because of the medical capabilities now. Okay. So from that standpoint, I'm lucky. So yeah, you think about the end times because you feel it all the time. Okay. Am I afraid of death? No, I'm not looking forward to dying. That part
I feel
of it.
you.
Okay. When I go, I hope I go like my parents both did with heart attacks, and then boom, you're done. Okay. That's my preferred way of going. But I'm not afraid of death because I am a very, very strong believer in my Lord Jesus Christ. And I've read a couple of books on heaven. I can recommend some great books on heaven, by the way. And they are heaven is not what the 20th century, 21st century makes it out to be, just floating around in clouds and stuff like that. It's going to be a fascinating place to be with all kinds of fascinating things to do. And the most beautiful thing in the world. Something weird has happened to me at least twice, maybe 3 times in my life. And this has been over an extended period of time. On this, at least 2, maybe 3 occasions, I've had a feeling come over me. And it's been a split second. I mean, it's boom, it's happened. But it was significant enough that I went, whoa. And it was a feeling of absolutely 1,000% calm and peace. And it's like a blink of an eye, a flash, and that was it. But it was a strong enough feeling that it's like, whoa, what was that? And I felt that a few times. And I'm convinced, whether it's true or not, I don't care. I'm convinced that it was the good Lord giving me a tiny little picture of what it's going to be like when I'm there.
I was going to say that's a little micro burst of the enlightenment of your soul.
Yep.
We don't feel that too much here because we got this thing, and this thing corrupts everything, the whole body and everything. It's a governor of our soul, meaning turn the volume down of the soul. Right. This is. I have people who are Christians. They believe this is hell. This is hell.
Oh, it is.
So
it is.
That's really cool. There's this story is repeated in near-death stories quite often. And I watched this guy. This guy was he worked for the CIA, and he had a real whatever way they measure your mind power. He had a lot of mind power. So they started putting him in a program where they were opening up channels in his mind so he could predict future events. And he actually called 3 big events. Like I said, I don't know how they measure the criteria of the brain, but he had it. And, so he had a near-death experience where he had a widowmaker heart attack walking into a restaurant with his friends. And his one friend was a doctor. And he said, my friend started working on me, and he goes, I floated up and I could see him working on me. Like I was rising out of my body and I was moving away, but I could see all the scene on the street. Mm-hmm. And he said, and then the light, people who have I saw this light and I kept moving toward this light, and it was euphoric. I'd never felt anything like that. And all of a sudden, I stopped moving toward the light and I started moving backwards. And he goes, I was reaching for something to grab because I didn't want to leave. And he goes, that was my buddy bringing me back. And he came back. And that story is repeated many times in near death. Yeah. And I think you got little bursts of whatever that thing is.
There's no way you can begin to describe what the feeling is. I mean, it was just like, it's a complete, utter calm and peace.
It sounds like perfection. It's It's absence of fear, absence of
like total love.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't
That's
know.
that's
I
a
don't
good way to
I
describe
don't
it.
know.
I'd say.
Yeah, and I've had these at least twice in my life. I've had that, and both times, whoa, where'd that come from? And it might have been one other time. That's where we're going.
I agree.
That's
I agree.
One of the comments I made to Ross over dinner is we were chatting about this, and he's having a hard time wrapping his head around it. I said, Ross, you and Andrew, as you're building your business, you guys talk all the time about different approaches and different things you can add to it. I said, every time you do that, you take a look at, okay, here's something to think about. There's a revenue stream that we could wrap around that and so on, but there's some costs involved. You're doing a risk reward. I said, the biggest risk reward you can ever imagine is what we're talking about right now. Okay. And if you pick the wrong path, okay, there's no going back, and it's going to be something that is beyond imagination in terms of, can you imagine being in heaven with the Lord and all the other believers on a new earth and a new heaven? And by the way, your job, Frank, is see that galaxy over there? The one, the 20 billionth galaxy over there, that's yours. Go take care of that one. Okay. I mean, we're going to have work to do when we're up there. Okay. Okay. And compare that to the opposite of no hope, pain, total darkness, being totally alone, yet you're going to have other beings screaming every blasphemy you can imagine in your ear for eternity. Good God, who would wish that on their family? You know, that's why, again, that's the regret that the foundation wasn't there, and now I'm trying to pull it back.
Thank you for sharing it. The reason why I could so bluntly ask you about contemplation of your mortality is because I do that every day, many times a day. One of my best friends, Tommy Heights, he's like, "You're a Stoic." I go, "What's a Stoic?" Well, it's a ancient Greek philosophy, and the Stoics embrace the notion of today could be my last day. Memento mori, remember you will die. And then amor fati means love of fate. One of the pictures up there, my buddy Mike, the four people at the table, the guy on the right, he died of cancer. And he called me up on a Sunday afternoon crying. And he said, I have brain cancer, I'm going to die. And that's at that moment, that was the life is short really punched me in the mouth. I preached about it, I talked about it, but I was not living my life in such a way that reflected that. So now I'm looking at this guy who's my age, and he's got limited time left, and it's like, I want to live and learn from his experience. And that's when I started thinking all the way through, like in the greatest detail, what if today's my last day? I don't want to waste 1 minute of that precious time I have left being angry, being unforgiving, wasting my time on stupid stuff. I want to really focus on what's important. So that's been my emotional journey. So I am exactly like you. I don't want to check out anytime soon, but if I do, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you this. It was either a university study or an individual. They interviewed a lot of old people, and they had a big questionnaire, and they found that there's basically 3 phases of life. Phase 1 is growth and learning and achieving. It's jam-packed with stuff. And if you live long enough, you get into phase 2, which is you start to contemplate giving back and readjusting your priorities. And then if you live long enough to make it to phase 3 is you start to think about, hey, I'm getting older. I'm on the last 3 holes of the 18 or less. What am I leaving behind? What is my legacy, right?
Yeah.
So I started thinking through that, and then legacy became my most important thing. And it was right where I should have been in the middle part. I leapfrog over that, and I'm like, what do I want my legacy to be? I'm going to envision myself being in a coffin and my family standing up at the coffin and people coming by. What would I want my friends to tell my family about me? You know, he was my best friend. He saved my life. He helped me solve my problems. He was a warrior, whatever, all of this stuff. And what would I want my family to say to my friends? So it's a long list of criteria, right? I want to be super special in every way to everybody. And I thought to myself, the only way I could do that is I have to be the best version of myself. I cannot be depressed and let the pressures of life get me down. I have to be a strong warrior. How do I do that? And a lot of that has to do with perspective, reframe, prayer, faith, and gratitude. You know, so I feel at this juncture, if I died today, I have done what I set out to do. Did I fulfill the whole list of legacy? Probably not. I wouldn't even never allow that. But I feel good that I am on my mission, and whether I get to the destinations I want to get to, the fact that I'm staying on my mission and staying true to my code, I'm good to check out today. I will have left the legacy that I wanted. How do you feel about your legacy? Do you think, other than the Ross and your daughter thing, do you think you've done well?
I think I have. I've gotten to the point where, and looking back at life, there are all kinds of different choices that you could have made. You think about through life. Yeah, there's an area where I could have made a different choice, might have been better, and so on. And then you get to the point that you're here now, okay, and you most of my legacy is behind me. It's already done, okay. So at this point in time, it's more of trying to make sure that the family I leave behind is in a good place. I've got a granddaughter that's getting married in October, and she and her soon-to-be husband got a whole life ahead of them, and so on. If I can leave them with some tidbits on how to go about that, that's a good thing. If I can make a little dent in my 2 kids in terms of giving them something as a foothold on building what's really important in their life going forward, that's a good thing. But in terms of other accomplishments, nothing of that matters to me at all. It's just, it comes down to your family and friends, and staying true to that.
This is my book, How to Be a Warrior of Light in a Dark World. It's available on Amazon. It's about mindset and many other things. It's kind of a handbook on life. I have my second book coming called The Gift of Grief. That's at the editor right now, and that will be published probably within a month or 2. So thank you all for joining the Warrior Podcast. Thank you to our sponsors. We'll see you at our next show. So this is just a little bit of frankism. I believe when you live your life right, you try to please your Lord, and you try to live a good life, and we're all sinners and we all screw up all the time. When you die, you actually tighten the bond between all the people you left behind if you've lived your life the right way. And that is the completion of your legacy. That you have to die to finish that last piece, right? Because that's what happened when Dorothy died. Like, the bond between my family, like we tightened. We're a much more cohesive unit. And that was a gift that she left us that she couldn't have given us until she died. So I believe that will happen with you and these messages that you have repeatedly given your kids and your granddaughter. When you pass away, whenever that is, those words will become like a branding iron, and it will be etched into their brain, and then the recall will happen.
That's what I hope and pray for.
Yep. And God is working through you, and he'll sort it out.
No, he's got a plan for me. I'll tell you why he's got a plan for me and why I'm still here. Last fall, I was heading out to the Northwest, I think Barrington or Riverwoods, not Riverwoods, Barrington or one of the Northwest, maybe Palatine, whatever. And I was driving up 53, heading up towards the end of 53, that Lake Cook exit.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm driving along in the left lane, keeping up with traffic, 70, 75 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, a text message pops up on my display in the car. It comes out through the phone to the car. And I go like this to hit ignore. And I look back up in front of me, and the traffic in the left lane is at a complete standstill. And I'm going 75 miles an hour, and I'm not more than 150 feet from them. I slam on the brakes, and the car is, the ABS is kicking in, and it's basically locked up. And I'm coming up on the back of this line of cars super fast, and I think, oh shit, this is not good. An 88-year-old fart grabs the wheel, whips it to the left, hits the off-road curb area, which is full of those rumble strips. So the car is on that, bumping across that, and I go flying past the end of that line and finally come to a stop. And I'm just sitting there and thinking, what the hell just happened? And I'm just sitting there, and interestingly, I wasn't shaking or anything. I was as calm as could be. I was just sitting there. And then the line of cars starts moving, and this car pulls up next to me, a guy in a Jeep Wagoneer, and he rolls down the window and and I roll down the window. He says, "That was amazing. Great job. Thank you." And then drives away. And then I'm still sitting there, and the last car leaves, and maybe a minute later, I finally pull out and start driving again. That had nothing to do with me, Frank. There's no way an 88-year-old guy could have pulled off what just happened. Okay? 88-year-old guys end up killing themselves and whoever is unfortunate in the car in front of them. For that to happen, the good Lord is keeping me here for a reason.
I'm with you.
Okay, he's got my days numbered like he's got all our days numbered, and that whenever that happens, I'm out of here, and that's going to be fine with me. When we downsized, we moved out of our last house almost 10 years ago now. We did the downsize declutter. We moved into an apartment in Oak Park in an elevator building. Small building. There's only 21 apartments, and we got a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment with a balcony. So Sylvia used to smoke, so she'd be out there. So we had to have a balcony for her. Now it's me. I go out with a cigar and my bourbon and sit there and enjoy things. Anyway, that has turned out to be a mission field for me. There's a little table we have down in the lobby where you put little packages of stuff. And what I've done is I get these little booklets from Discovery House. It's Our Daily Word kind of a thing that I subscribe to, and I get them, and all kinds of topics, Christian topics. I've gotten to the point, and I had a stack of them like that high in my office. And one day I thought, planted by the good Lord, why don't you take some of those downstairs and put them on the table? And I do that. I'm working through the list, and I keep getting new ones. And so on a regular basis, I'll go down. I'll put 2 little stacks of 3 each with a note above them. Please take 1 or 2. You'll enjoy the reading, and I promise you'll get some nuggets out of each one. I put them down there, and they disappear. I put some more down there, they disappear. Put some more down there, and they disappear. Okay, so the good Lord is using me to get His word to people in my little mission field in my building. Yeah, and I've gotten back into the Bible studies that I used to be involved in before I had to drop out because of a business thing that I had going on for a while, and developing good friendships with a bunch of old farts like me in the Bible study, and it's a good part of my life.
Awesome. So I always like to finish with this question: on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how happy and fulfilled are you right now?
I'm at a 10.
My man. That's the right answer.
I'm really at peace. Okay. And without beating it to death, my whole goal is, so long as the Lord's got me on this mission, that I'm faithful to that, and that I can see it end.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Don, this has been a great honor for me, sharing your story. I loved every bit of it. You're a pretty smart feller, so you passed that in your kids, and yeah, it's been a pleasure. I'm glad I met you out in the real estate field.
So am I.
And Ross is awesome. So,
and I'm looking forward to all of us getting out to the range sooner than later.
I got a few things I need to cite in, and Danner's awesome at that. So,
oh yeah, and I bought a whole bunch of 30-06 rounds, and actually, a good reminder. I'm gonna go online and buy some M1 clips so I can have the clips all ready for the next time we go out.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Don, for coming on. I hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Frank, I couldn't have been happier. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome.
Okay. You're a hell of a guy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Warrior Podcast. Remember, there's a warrior inside us all. We'll see you at our next podcast. Thank you. Thank you, Don.
Amen. Thank you.